Mrs. Munson, Deb, you had a great deal to do with the book, and so you understand the book. But the question that I have for you is, how did your husband going through the class affect your family, and especially his relationship with you as he took the class, and how he would come home after 10 weeks of the class?
That's a really good question. Just seeing the changes in him, especially in the area of honor, in the area of understanding better his responsibility as husband, father, and in our case, grandfather, and the legacy that he's responsible for creating for our family. It increased my respect for him and my ability to honor him, because he was giving the honor to me that I needed so desperately. So understanding honor, what it means, what it looks like, had a profound effect, I think, on our relationship. Even so that we have good friends in Pennsylvania that we haven't seen for several years. They came out to visit, and one of their comments to us is, "Wow, we have never seen you two walk in unity like this in the whole time that we've known you." And they've known us for 20 years. So as we're progressing and as we were changing, it was subtle change. It seemed like subtle changes to us, but to have someone that we know and trust tell us they saw a change, that was pretty remarkable.
Amen. And that's one of the things that the class is designed for. Did you see a difference in Tim when he was bar mitzvahed, when he came home after that night of what did you see, especially after that? Because we have so many women that responded.
I think an increase in confidence was the first thing that I noticed.
Amen.
That he was just able to walk taller and hold his head up a lot more, because he realized that his value as a man had been validated and confirmed through this whole process. So yeah, it changed him. I saw it in the way that he interacted with other men in the congregation. Amen. And the way that he was able to encourage them to rise up and become more than they were. I think that can be said about the congregation as a whole. You can see the difference in the men after they've gone through the course. It's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Amen. Pastor Tim, as you've heard what your wife had to say, when you sat in the class, and especially of the 10 weeks that we went through, honor being one of them, but what did it do for you to sit in a class, knowing that you've read the book, but what did the classroom do for you, knowing that there were several other men there that you got to do some dialogue with, but what did the class enable you could get from that you never could get from the book?
Well, I think the biggest thing and from taking the class is you see there are other men just like me. I thought I was doing a pretty good job with honor, but I really didn't know what it was until I took the class and we went through and really looked at how do you honor people? What do you do? I'm still working on that today. And learning how much integrity means. When I say something to my wife, I need to mean it. Or if I'm not going to do it, I need to let her know I just can't do that. And she has to accept that, but being able to talk to the other men and realize that they going through some of the same issues as I was, that they Amen. Had the same struggles, and we were learning together. And that was the big thing about the class.
Amen.
The book is really good because it just puts it a little bit differently, and so it validated a lot of what we learned in the class.
Amen. Amen. What did it do for you when going through all of the tips that you get on how to be a better father, the things of how to be a better husband, and knowing that those things you hadn't been taught before? How did that make you feel going through those things and how it changed your life?
Well, you heard from my wife that some of the tips on how to be a better husband actually did work. Because I can be very sarcastic and sometimes it's misunderstood. I say things backwards, and learning that she can't comprehend that, or it doesn't work in her computer the same as mine, it makes her feel small and put her down. when I didn't really intend to do that. And so by learning, a little bit of how to treat my wife better, how to communicate better with her, made a big difference, and you can hear it from her already. And then the same thing with how to teach your children. What do you need to teach your boys? How do you get them prepared for life? How do you teach the girls? What do they need to be validated in, and so on? What are those key things? And I had no clue on some of the things that we learned there that we really needed to do.
Amen. How did that, Pastor Deb had said something about you being a grandfather, because both of your daughters are grown now, and so they're not at home, so you don't get to practice on them, but you do get to practice on your granddaughters.
Well, I get to practice on my granddaughters, and I also get to help my stepson. I only have daughters, so I have stepsons, or sons-in-laws. There we go. I'm using the wrong word. I have sons-in-laws. I have sons now, through marriage, but so I'm helping them to realize some of these things that they need to be able to teach their children, and that's a very powerful section of the book and the course. Is what are the key things that we need to look at? It doesn't give us all the answers, but it gives us some key ideas and things that we need to look at and work through with our kids.
Amen. And so did you find the class very beneficial, and would you take it again? Well, let's put it that way.
Oh yeah, the class was very beneficial, very worth taking. I'd take it again, if I had a chance. Because for me, I'm the children's pastor at church, and I'm very concerned with the kids. And there's a lot of things that they're missing, and we as the pastors and children's leaders and stuff are supposed to put in there. But we need to help the parents learn that these are the things that they really need to help their kids to understand and validate. What are these key things that they need from their parents that they can't even get from us as pastors or children's leaders?
Amen. I want to ask both of you again, as you see in our culture today, because you've taken this course almost, 7 years ago or something like that?
Yeah, for me, the initial time, yeah.
And so how has the culture changed since you started to see this class? What would you say why would this course be more beneficial today than when you took it 7 years ago? Would you?
Well, what I'm seeing in our society is they're beginning to realize how much fatherlessness is really affecting us in our culture, in our homes and schools, hearing it from the teachers. And so I see an interest in men wanting to become more a part of that, but not really knowing how. And so that's a beneficial thing. This really gives them some key things that they can work on. But it really starts with ourselves, because it's no matter what we try to teach our children, if they don't see it in us, they don't really take it very well.
Very good.
And so that's what the book is really good about, or the course is really good, is we can examine ourselves with other people and be honest in front of them.
Amen. Did you find the literature that you got in the class and the book, all that literature, did you find that helpful, even 7 years later, to be able to go back to and to refresh yourself on?
Well, yeah, it was very much helpful, because in the class you get a lot more hands-on, and you can write your own notes and those kind of things. We're just reading the book. Most of us don't write. Most men don't read that well anyway. We're just lazy. So taking the course is definitely a much quicker version if you don't like to read. And it also helps with, again, like I said, working with other men. But as far as a refresher, I found the book really good, because I can go back, pull out the pages, or a chapter that I want to look at and think, okay, how did that work? Or I can share it with somebody else, like, hey, Kogar, we were talking about this. Look at this in this book, and that really helps that way. It's hard to give them my notebook.
Right. Very good. Very good. Deb, would you be so kind, from a woman's point of view, seeing what is the degradation of the immorality in our society today, and finding a problem? It is, in my opinion, it is our greatest problem in our nation, is being able to fatherlessness and the lack of a family blessing. We've gotten away from our Hebrew roots.
I think that, just kind of trying to touch on the three topics there, I I know as a young woman growing up, having the validation of my father was extremely important to me. And that father's blessing didn't really come from him until after we were married and we had our kids and we were getting to make a pretty big transition in our life. And he, I remember sitting at his feet and he just said, we dedicated you as a child to God's work. And I'm seeing you and Tim doing that. And I just want you to know that you have my blessing. Wow. Changed. It was amazing, and I was in my 30s at that point when that happened. So that little bit of a blessing. And fathers, unless you're instructed on how to bless your children, I mean, to literally verbally bless them, that's something that's just immeasurable value as a woman, to know that my dad's got me covered and he blesses me and I don't need any other man's approval because I have his. And that's incredible. It's very, very powerful. I see that as a big need, especially with the fatherlessness that is in our culture right now. There are girls wandering around trying to find validity for their lives and personal value. And if they don't receive that from their father, they'll look for it in somebody else's arms, basically. And so that it's very, very important. The other thing that I think is important in the area of fatherlessness is that, you could have a father at home and still be fatherless because dad doesn't have a clue what he's doing. I think in our ultra achievement mentality in modern America, where the guys are out there trying to climb the corporate ladder or to create a successful business, they get wrapped up in their work, and which isn't a bad thing. I mean, hard work is good, but a lot of them also escape in their work. I know that was the case for my father. He was in his 70s when he finally sat down with me and said, I'm sorry I wasn't home when I should have. He worked from 5 a.m. until 9 or 10 at night as a self-employed businessman. And he basically confessed, I did that because, number one, I didn't know how to be a husband to your mom, and I didn't know how to be a father. So I hid. That was astonishing to me at 70 years of age, that he would sit down and say, I screwed up because I didn't know what to do. So changed our relationship entirely when he did that. But because I finally understood why he did what he did, I felt abandoned all my life thinking I did something wrong. And it wasn't that. It's that he just didn't know what to do. So he hid in his work. So yeah, it's really important for men to understand how they function at home and how important that moment when they walk in the door is, and what that means to their wives and to their children.
Yeah, follow up to that, and dad's not knowing what to do. When our girls become young teenagers and start maturing, they scare us to death because we don't know what to do with them. We want to protect them, we want to help them and encourage them, but in today's society, you can't hardly touch them, or you're in trouble, or whatever. So there's a kind of a limbo there on how do you help them, but they need that loving attention and appropriate hugs and touch and so on and so forth. Otherwise, they think we don't care about them, and that was something too that we were able to talk about as men when we were in the group. That how can we do that appropriately?
Absolutely. And I think you've touched on, and I want to hear from David here in a second, but one of the things that I found out in the book and in the last 7 years of teaching this course, probably 50 or 60 times now, but is seeing the importance of what it does to a child that doesn't get validated by a parent. And knowing all of the research that I've been able to do, that a child that goes through a divorce blames themselves. And that's not fair. And that's kind of where this whole thing is about, is that I'm trying to protect children for this next generation. And you look at a child that doesn't get that validation, subconsciously they wonder, how come my dad doesn't pray over me? Well, how come my mom doesn't pray over me? They don't think that in their brain because they're too little. But subconsciously there's a hole that they don't get filled. and they're constantly seeking it. It's like what Pastor Deb had said, a young girl that doesn't have that hole filled by dad, she wants touched, and she wants to be told she's pretty, she wants to be told that she's smart, she wants to be told that she's valuable, and if dad don't give it, some young man is going to give her those things. At maybe probably the price of something that she really is not ready to pay. And that's what's going on in our culture today, that we have so many people that subconsciously don't have the validation because the ignorance of both mom and dad of how to validate the children.
Yeah, because if we weren't taught, how are we to teach them?
That's it.
And so that's where, again, meeting in groups with men, because some of the guys were much better at it and were able to help us to understand some things, and then others, in some areas we had no clue onto what needed to be done. And so by being able to talk about it, it really did help.
Absolutely. David, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you, and a father of 2 daughters, and being able to do that, 2 daughters, 2 sons, and you've taken the course twice, read the book.
4 times.
4 times? Okay. Okay. Oh, that's right. You went.
Just going to clear that up.
Yep.
4 times.
Okay.
And I would do it again.
Okay. So what did the course do for you? I mean, the first time you went through it and knowing the course and you read the book, what has the course really done for you as a family man that you didn't have before you came here to ELCC?
Well, Pastor, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me here. This is a really awesome opportunity to let other people know that not only is this course done something, but it's still available. And we love doing it. We love seeing the lives that are being changed. The people that go through this go from being confused and separated and having no idea about something and walking out like with armor on, and then a game plan and actually having a direction, and then being able to have a book, even to partner with, kind of like a playbook. Like I can finally get on the field, and like I got a playbook. I can accomplish this life, and I can do it to the best, and I can show people that they can too. The first time I went to the class, I only went through 7 of the actual class times because I had missed 3. So I wasn't able to do anything. So I started and I took it over. The second time I went through with a bunch of other people, and it kind of shocked me because Buzzy Whiteclay was actually one of the guys, and he's older than I am. He's a grandpa, he's a dad, he's a phenomenal guy, and I didn't even know that even at an older age, there was still something that could be gleaned, that could be learned. And I watched his son and him go in my class and go through the same class together. That was very powerful. It also showed me that I come from a family who, my dad died when I was 13. I actually watched him take his last breath in my house. His best friend began to raise me into what the concept of being a man was. You go get a job and you keep stuff in your pants, just kind of do the right thing. Well, in this course, it was more like, let's break every section of your life down, all the way down to the very, very foundation. Find out where the cracks are. We want to establish and fill that and rebuild those foundations. And then when you actually step out and say, I know what it looks like to be a man, there's no problems in your foundation. There might be wounds from the past. You can see the scars, but the foundation is so incredibly solid that it's easy to build on. And it was an easy class to take once I understood how to fix my foundations. It was absolutely a joy. That's what encouraged me to keep doing it a 3rd time and a 4th time, and watching other people. And when I graduated through the class, and when I saw other people graduate the class, it just blew my mind.
Amen. Pastor Tim, as we're closing this out right now, tell us what the bar mitzvah meant to you as a man.
Well, sometimes I wonder what it really did for me. I know for some guys it was a huge, huge thing. I had a good father who worked with me through time and that, but really never did a bar mitzvah, but before he passed away with me. But so it was really kind of a climax to everything that we had done during that whole time, to realize that, like Kogar said, we had foundations built. We knew who we were a little bit better. We knew better how to treat people. And it was like, okay, now let's go forth and do this. Let's conquer the world, kind of type of thing. But it is a little more than that.
Okay. David, what about you? What did you sense when you did the bar mitzvah ceremony? What did it mean to you?
So the bar mitzvah ceremony meant a lot. It meant we go through an actual door. So there's a door and it's got blood around it. It's painted. But so you cross over the threshold, and what the first thing that I saw all the generations that had come before me, all the men that had taken that step, that had done that. And then I turned around and I could see all the people coming after me, and that made me stay. And that's why I wanted to do it. It was something that I think every young man should experience, because it reminds them when they leave the house that they're crossing that threshold to do something that's theirs. It's going to become their life, not mom and dad are holding my hand. This is mine.
Amen. Amen.
It's really quite an emotional time, because we've been part with several younger men, and have their moms and dads come up and bless them, and really have a chance to tell these young men and young women from their heart who they are and what they mean to them. Amen. and to encourage them for their future growth in life, and it was just amazing to watch.
And I would probably say, as the leader of this, we've watched probably 100 people go through this course.
Yes.
And looking at what has meant more to me was watching a father and mom validate that child, and choking up and tears running down their face, and knowing that what that meant for maybe the first time that child got to hear, "This is my beloved son or daughter in whom I'm well pleased."
Yes.
And what those very words done to the very heart of a human being. And that's probably what witnessing that, knowing, and then myself knowing what it did to me. I like what Pastor Deb said about more confidence.
As a spectator, watching the men walk through that door and then be embraced by the other guys that have already gone through the course, that have already walked through the door, that blesses my heart to see men standing together, saying, "I've got your back," because that makes me aware that my husband has other guys he can turn to when he's struggling with something, not in this battle alone. And that's very comforting to me as a woman, to know that, my husband's a soldier in an army. He's part of a team, and they're in this together. Amen. And that's really good to me. It really blesses my heart to see that.
One of the things that Pastor Tim demonstrated for me years ago, that during the ceremony, we have the mom cut the umbilical cord, and every man gets a section of rope as a reminder that umbilical cord. And Pastor Tim this was just a couple years ago, he pulls his cord out of his pocket with the suit he was wearing. He carries it all the time.
Well, that's in my good suit, my wedding suit, I don't have that one on tonight, but it's still there.
Yeah, I know.
It's still in that pocket.
Yeah.
So as being a dad, I have an older daughter. She's 17 now. When she went through her bar mitzvah, there was a group of kids that actually went through, 3 boys, 2 girls, and my oldest daughter. And cutting the rope, praying over her, and doing things really did something in her, not just at the time, but as planted seeds to where, I'll give you guys a real quick background. Her real biological father basically just threw her in the trash and said, good luck to her mom. And so when I got married to her mom, I said, I've also been abandoned and trashed my whole life, and that's never going to happen to you. But I didn't really know it was a good intention. I didn't really know how to execute that. So as I went through Call to Be Men, I learned actually how to execute that, actually how to step into the role, let her be confused, frustrated, but at the same time, like, guide her along that. So when we went through the class and she graduated and I got to cut the umbilical cord and I got to watch her cross the threshold, it was very much, this is my daughter, not this is my stepdaughter. It no longer had that cheesy little premise of words in front of it, the cliche where somebody goes, that's your stepdaughter. No. I've never, ever, ever introduced my daughter as my stepdaughter, ever. And there was one thing that I really kind of wanted to hit on. You had said the other parts of just the bar mitzvah, when you pray over your kid, the words you choose for that day are so incredibly important, and it's not something that you just toss around. It's not, well, God just bless her and we just make sure everybody's okay and they have a good husband. That is a time period. That is like a stamp in time. And I'll tell you, whoever takes the class coming out right now, whoever's going to be in this class, really think about what you're going to say over your kids. Really pray about it. That part of the class was never a joke to me.
Amen.
And that's a part that Pastor Steve has helped us with. As parents blessing our children, he also gives us some guidelines of things that we can use. So he's not just telling you have to do it on your own. So he's gone so far as to help the fathers prepare and mothers prepare the blessings. But they still have to do it themselves.
Yep. You know, one of the things that we want to close this up today and want to thank all of you, David, and Pastor Tim, Pastor Debbie, for being a part of this tonight, because we're really praying that people will watch this and want to find this answer, because I believe in this whole region, what this course is doing is changing lives and is really hope for America. And we're going to try to do this even more. And if after watching this that you would be so inclined to be able to find out more, our phone number will be at the bottom of the screen, and we're located at 1304 Central. We meet on Friday night and Saturday mornings, and we invite you to come and be a part with us to learn more how you can make a difference for your own family. And so we're very excited about that. Any parting questions or comments?
Well, I don't know if it's a parting thing, but I want to insert something here. You know, Debbie talked about how she observed me changing, and other women have talked about how they've observed their men changing and becoming more functional in the role as husband and family. I've seen marriages being saved through this course, several. Doesn't mean they don't have bumps down the road, but they've learned how to handle these bumps now.
Amen.
And how to work it out.
Amen.
The other thing, help me lost my track. Oh, women. When women get a hold of this book, the men take the course. I've seen it over and over again. Once the women begin to understand what's happening here, they really encourage their husbands. So I'm speaking to the women out there that might be hearing this. It's okay. You can encourage them. I even had some of the women talk to me about how they read the book to their husbands because they won't read it. My wife reads to me. I'm not ashamed to admit it because I don't like to read that much. But this would be a book that the women could read to their husbands, because both the women and the husband really learn about each other, and it's really quite helpful. And so women, encourage your men, and that's okay, because a lot of the men have been through this course because their wives haven't really encouraged them to do that.
And you know, and we've brought this course along so that it's not just men taking the course anymore. We're now bringing the women in so that they too, called Proverbs 31 Women, to be able to cause them, because in our culture today, who's raising the kids? Most of the women. And so we're giving them tips on how to validate their children. And I believe, again, this is an answer for our nation's biggest problem. So we want to thank all of you for coming and being a part with us today. And we just pray that other people will take advantage of this class. Amen.